On every ward, every nurse, every doctor, I think everybody who is frontline NHS, who are dealing with patients, are amazing. You know, if you said to somebody, I want you to train for 9 years, I want you to train for 3 years, and at the end of it, you're still going to be working 12, 14-hour days, you're going to get a decent wage, but at the end of the day, you're making a decision that could make somebody's life live longer, or you have to tell somebody, I'm sorry, but your relative has only got 3 months to live.
There is always some cases during the year that you remember more than others, of, you know, sudden young deaths, and even like of people you know sometimes have been brought in through the mortuary, old colleagues or a neighbour of mine quite recently.
But in here where you see so many ill people younger than yourself, or even the same age, that suffer with major problems, which means their life is going to be totally different to mine, I think it makes you think, it makes you wonder. And I think you enjoy life outside a bit more.
It's a wonderful job. It's great to feel as if you're doing something for somebody. If you're in the NHS, the main reason you're in the NHS is because you care for people. And if you don't care for people, you really shouldn't be in the NHS, because you're not in this for the money, that's for sure.
It was supposed to be a 6-month contract when I started, but 20 years later I'm still here. A lot of people think porters' jobs are bag carrying. They were years ago, but not anymore. You can't just walk off the street and do this job now. If the porters weren't here, it wouldn't run. Simple as that. We're the general dog's bodies with the NHS. If you want to know anything, ask a porter. That's us. We try to be sort of jovial, have a bit of fun with them. Some of them you can't have a bit of fun with because they're obviously too ill to laugh, but you can normally, with this sort of job, you sort of get a sixth sense about, as soon as you see a patient, you know you can have a chat and a laugh. I mean, they're not feeling too good as it is, they're ill, and they don't want to be in here, and it's boring sat on the wards. And they do like a bit of joviality and a bit of normality as well. But we have had people say that to us. If it weren't for you guys, I'd go nuts.
So they'll say, John, we've got one on Ward 22. The general porter will usually wait outside off the ward, somewhere discreet with the trolley, while I go and make sure that the form's filled out properly and a space is cleared around the bedside, so we've got room to get the trolley in, and that all the curtains and doors are closed so that none of the other patients in the ward will be aware, hopefully, that we're there. We bring the deceased to the mortuary. One of us will check for wristbands and jewellery. We'll measure them and put them away while the other one fills in the paperwork.
They get stir crazy. You do have conversations with patients when you've wheeled them back and forth after like 2 or 3 weeks or even a month and a half, and they get stir crazy. And I took a guy back to 24, an old chap, and he'd been in that long that he'd not actually seen the outside world. And we came out the lift, turned right, and we stopped by the orthopaedic department, where the trees are, where the blossom is. And he was on the bed, and we jacked the bed up and he just looked outside just to see the trees, just to see the outside world. Then we turned around and went round and stopped at the foyer just to watch the buses go by and the traffic. It really made his day just to see blossom and to see people walking around. Somebody walking around not in a uniform. As long as a patient feels as if they have something to live for, or someone to live for, or someone who relies on them, they will fight and fight and fight. But if you've got nobody that relies on you, or you've got nothing to live for, you will just give up. Even if it's a minor thing, you will just give up, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, the Porter's Lodge, they've always had one. It's a historical Porter's Lodge. It's a central point for us. If anybody wants anything, they know where they can find us. We do take the mickey out of each other quite a lot, and it does get really, the language gets really bad sometimes. I'm the instigator of that, I don't know. So there's two sides to us. I suppose you could say we're like two different people, one in the lodge and one out here. It's totally different.
We're all one big happy family, isn't it?
Oh yeah, dysfunctional family.
Dysfunctional family, yeah, the Adams fucking family, I think.
I think even less than that actually, Al, don't you?
Oh, it could be Mrs. Brown's family.
Hey!
Agnes, you ever watched Mrs. Brown?
I've seen it once and I didn't like it.
Fucking Agnes there, look. Agnes Brown.
It does look
Can you switch that camera off? They're going to like fucking Russians in a minute.
Is that not you, Mike?
Why is that me?
I found you in cartoon form.
Same hair.
That's why I keep going, I don't know, what do you want to do? 'Cause
Same here.
It is a quick change when you walk out of that lodge into the corridor, because your job comes up on the screen and you might be in the middle of all that, what's going on, and it's a complete split-second change. As soon as you walk through that door, you're totally different.
It's nobody's dream job, or you wouldn't start thinking like that. Nobody wants to be a mortuary porter, but it came at a difficult time in my life. I had to come off shift work onto day work because my ex-wife left me and my children, and I needed to do a day job for childcare demands. I've always felt like it is a job that you should feel honoured to do. You're kind of being entrusted with something that is important because of how we all feel about our loved ones and how we would all want them treated in those moments between their death and their burial.
That makes you think when you get kids in that died. And I personally, a number of years ago, I hadn't been over here long, an 8-year-old girl was brought with a cardiac arrest. There was a porter in presence in the resus room in case they wanted blood or anything else. At that time, I was stood in there when they had this 8-year-old girl. The teacher from the school she was on the floor, fainted, I think. The mother and father were outside in tears. And it just seemed odd that the doctor said, you know, we all agree we give up. It just seems odd for an 8-year-old, but then say later on we found out she was born with a heart defect. But putting her in the fridge, I helped put her away. That's the most unpleasant thing I've ever had to do here, I think. We're not supposed to talk about any of this stuff, but you know, you can't keep that thing in. Otherwise you'd be like a zombie for the rest of your life. You've got to let somebody else know, share the problem, as it were. Later on that day, a 92-year-old woman was brought in with a cardiac arrest and they saved her. Which, you know, seems a bit unfair in some respects. I'm glad for the woman who saved her, but when an 8-year-old doesn't survive, it seems a bit unfair.
Serving time in Ireland, in the military, just the mindlessness of it. You know, the stupidity of man just thinking that by blowing up a policeman or walking into a pub and spraying the place that's going to make any difference. With war, it's just violence. You're taught, you know, be violent. You know, you're not there to shake hands with the guys. No, your job is to stop him breathing, and you'll do anything. You know, if you haven't got a weapon, you then pick up the chair, you throw him through the window, you bite his nose off, you bite his windpipe out, and it's violence of action. But this is one of the reasons I do this job, because I'm sort of repenting for my past sins. Yeah. With this, when you have an old person who slowly goes, it's sad, but it's natural. Even a cardiac arrest, in a way, or somebody unfortunately dying on the operating table, is natural, because it happens, and there is not that connection between violence. But in war, or even a couple of idiots who are drunk and having a punch up, their intention is to hurt and harm, where the intention for here is to care for that person right up to that last second where we can't do any more for them. Up to that last second, we want to make them live. We want them to live, because that's our job. My glass is half full. I've had a really good life. I've had good times, I've had bad times, but you know, it's just, you've got to try and be positive, especially in this environment where you are dealing with life and death.
Just happy to make that transition for them is pleasant and as nice as possible. Sometimes even bizarrely, I think that, well, they might be actually looking at me doing this to them, you know. It's not impossible. So it's another reason why I just afford them the utmost respect.
I suppose it'd be nice to have loads of money in the bank, but I don't know if that would make you happy or not. It doesn't seem to make some people happy. As long as you can pay your bills, earn a wage, get me wages, pay me bills and go on holiday a couple of times a year, and I'm okay with that. It'd be nice to retire early, bit of money in the bank, but I don't think I could be really any happier than what I am now. I could be a lot worse.
Even when you deal with the end of life, where you're taking somebody from a ward to the mortuary, you're still performing a service. And that person is somebody's mum, somebody's son, daughter, brother, whatever. And you're there to give them their last bit of dignity. And it's their one of the last journeys they're going to make. So in a way, as a porter, that's the biggest responsibility we've got. That is the most important job I see, that I think we do. You know, and our designated porter, John, is one of the most conscientious, caring guys I've ever met. Because you have to be. Because one day, it's either going to be you or it's going to be one of your own relatives.